Welcome back to the Budget Gamer channel, where we bring you critical and in-depth reviews of just about every indie game we can get our hands on, and today we're going to be taking a look at Aborigenus for the Nintendo Switch. And I'll be honest, originally I wasn't even going to cover this game, but I had a friend who messaged me out of the blue and was like, hey, you have to cover this game, it's on a crazy sale. And I was like, oh, man, I looked at it, it just doesn't look that good. And then he was like, but dude, people got to know. And so here we are, covering Aborigenus, just for you, and you know who you are. But diving straight into the story, it's kind of what you would expect of a simple retro-style platformer. Your girlfriend gets kidnapped, you gotta go save her. I mean, this is in everything from Mario to Mario and every single game after Mario. But not only does your girlfriend get captured, your entire village gets captured. So as you play through each of the game's four whole levels, you'll rescue a couple of your tribesmen and try and get your girlfriend back from the game's final and actually only boss. Mechanically though, Aborigenus is actually kind of unique as far as platformers go because it's not just a platformer. It does have that sort of adventure-themed background, but it also does have RPG elements worked in. You'll have your standard jump-shoot mechanic, or in this case jump-stab mechanic, as you wield your spear to attack any close-range enemies. But after leveling up from gaining a significant amount of experience points from some of the game's random spawn enemies, you'll actually be able to purchase weapon upgrades and even upgrade for the game's stealth system. But the first upgrade you should probably purchase is for the boomerang to give yourself some ranged attacks, because oddly enough, some enemies in the game cannot be attacked with your spear because you apparently cannot jump and stab at the same time. Though you will be able to throw your boomerang in mid-flight, as well as launch your boomerang from some of the game's climbing vines and ropes to be able to hit birds and stuff that might be flying around you. And as the boomerang pretty much does have full screen range, it will probably become one of your most advantageous weapons. But if you're like me and you do enjoy the more stealthy kind of adventure games, there is actually a stealth system like I mentioned earlier. And this is also a skill that can be upgraded to become more powerful to deal more damage to enemies if you can attack them before they've seen you. All you have to do is press down on either the left thumbstick or one of the directional keys and you'll crouch into a sneaking position. And this stealthy attack will deal double the damage, and if you can max it out, it potentially one-shots just about every enemy in the game. Halfway through Aborigenus, though, you do encounter a bit more of that RPG element, not just in skill trees and acquirable skills, but in a quest. Though because the game can be beaten in between 25 and 45 minutes, you can expect the quest is not very long. Pretty much early in one of the game's 4 levels, you'll encounter a witch in the desert area, and she'll ask you for a flower and bless you with shamanistic powers. And these powers not only set you up to further develop the blossoming story of the game, but allow you access to 3 more usable skills. Now making use of your previously unviewable magic bar, you can use shield elements, things that buff your attack, and so on and so forth, that can all also be upgraded and managed as you play through the game. But moving on from the game's retro mechanics, at least visually, Aborigenus is exactly what you would expect from those early days of 8-bit NES era gaming. Though the main character's sprite and even some of the enemies are a little less ambitious as far as their design goes, the background work is actually pretty darn good. Every one of the game's 4 levels is completely unique, and the details really will keep you in and at least make it feel like you're not playing through the same level over and over. The audio profile of the game is also pretty good. It's definitely a step above what would be considered to be maybe truly nostalgic and reminiscent of the 8-bit era. But I mean, don't go expecting Beethoven, it's good, but it's not that good. And after covering these 2 features, it is now time to get into the game's mini critiques. But even though I am going to say some negative things, I'm probably not going to go quite as hardcore as some of my other reviewer friends that maybe gave it as few as 0 out of 10 stars. Yeah, I'm looking at you. You know who you are. I read your stuff. But while I don't think the game is 0 stars worthy, there are definitely some things to note. And one of those primarily is the game's attack mechanic. It is fundamentally broken. Not being able to jump and attack at the same time from the beginning of the game is it was just a bad decision. And this is partially because the game's skill trees are not actually advertised. If you read the eShop description, you'll learn that there are development skills that you can acquire through experience and modify and increase and whatever. But if you didn't read through the eShop and you didn't play with every single button on your controller, you probably would never stumble across the game's menu that allows you access to the unlockable skills and the skill upgrades. And this means for the entirety of the gameplay, you could be playing with just your basic skill at its most fundamental level. And that actually brings up another large point of critique for the game, as several of my friends have played through this game completely not even knowing that there was a skill menu. So even playing with the most fundamentally basic skills, not being able to jump and attack, having to avoid most enemies for the inability to attack them with your spear, they were still able to beat the game in under 40 minutes. Which, to a point, completely moots the necessity for skills and skill tree and skill progression, meaning that the advent of the RPG element to the game was completely pointless. Now, having a pointless element to a game doesn't make it a bad game, it just kind of makes you wonder, why did you put that much effort into this particular dynamic when you could have put more effort into developing the fundamentals? And on the note of fundamentals, that brings us to the critique of the boss fights, or in this case, boss fight. There's one boss fight in the game at the very end, and it's not challenging, like at all. If you do play through the game and get to the boss fight though, you will notice that as you get the boss lower in health, his attack pattern does actually change. But as with the rest of the game, it just seems so overwhelmingly underdeveloped that there's not much enjoyment to it. It's more like a light demo for entertainment purposes of a game concept, as opposed to an actual fully fleshed out game. And so in that sense, even if you are a fan of retro classic era platformers, you might see the appeal of the nostalgia or the appeal of the idea behind the game, but you probably won't really enjoy it. That is, unless of course you're actually looking for a game for an easy win in your corner that you can just sit down and in one sitting mark one more game beaten for the year. And in that case, I mean, yeah, if you can crush a game in 25-40 minutes, that's awesome. Because beating a game always feels good, even if the victory isn't terribly satisfying. But as much as I could go on about this tiny little retro platformer, it is about time to wrap up the review of Aborigenus now on the Nintendo Switch. So if you enjoyed the review, or especially if you found it helpful, feel free to throw us a like or a comment, show your support, and let us know what you're thinking. And that's whether it's about developing the quality of the reviews, or if the review was helpful or not, or your thoughts on the game. Because honestly, these kind of games do come up every once in a while, and they're not exactly easy to review. Especially not easy to review in the sense that you're trying to preserve the art of indie games, or at least that's what this channel does. And while I have to call out the negatives, I do try and preserve the positives. Because everything is an effort, and even if the game, to a more open standard of global media gaming, seems to be kind of a flop, well, that game, unless it's objective shovelware, was somebody's baby. And especially if it's their first game, I want them to learn and make more games later. But anyway, yeah, moving on, I'd love to know what y'all think about this game, especially if you have played it, how fast you beat it, and did you even know about the skill upgrade menu? Because that's just a hilarious detail. But anyway, if you enjoyed the review, if you found it helpful, make sure you smash that subscribe button and help us grow. There are thousands of indie games out there, and new and unique ones are coming out literally every single day. So whether it's an easy hard pass or an absolutely unforgettable gem, chances are if it's on the eShop, you're going to find out about it right here. But anyway, this has been The Budget Gamer, so as always, thanks for watching.